Hi, I'm Rocco Staino, and welcome to StoryMakers. I'm delighted today to have Patricia Forde all the way from Galway, Ireland. Now, where's Galway?
It's on the west coast of Ireland. We say in Ireland that the next village to us is America.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Because we're looking out across the Atlantic over at you guys.
Yeah, that's why I wore my international bow tie filled with flags. Can you see if you can find the Irish flag here anywhere?
Yeah, I can see it.
It's right there. And
right
so
on the hem.
can you describe the Irish flag?
It's green, white, and gold.
Green, white, and gold. Yes, and it's there, right there on the tie. I'm so glad that you found it on my tie.
Good thing it was on your tie, or that could have been an international diplomatic incident.
Yes, oh my. So I'm so glad that it is. So your book is called The List, and it is a fantasy. And so tell us about The List.
Well, it's set in the future, after what I call in the book, the melting. You can figure out for yourself what that is.
Yes.
But it's a terrible environmental disaster. And now there's only this one community of people left. And there are very strict rules. Music is forbidden, art is forbidden, and the language of this place, Ark, the language of Ark is list. A list of 500 words. And they're the only words you can use. If you use a word that's not on that list, you're going to be thrown into the forest and eaten by wolves.
Yes, and there is your character, Letta, and Benjamin are wordsmiths. And that was the title of the book when it was published in Ireland, Wordsmith.
Yeah, originally it was called The Wordsmith.
Right.
And wordsmiths, I was kind of thinking like, you know, blacksmiths who make things for horses, and wordsmiths who deal with words.
Right, and so their job in ARC is to create lists.
Yeah, and distribute the words, because all technology has been drowned now. This is after this huge disaster, so there's nothing left. It's like going back in history, really. There's nothing left, and somebody has to give you your 500 words, so somebody has to write each word on a card and give it to you in your little box.
Right, and you talk about the melting, and that is, it was a disaster, and can we attribute it to global warming?
Yeah,
yes.
I'm afraid so.
Yes.
Yeah, it's global warming. Where I live in the west of Ireland, in Connemara, it's a really beautiful, beautiful part of the world. It's kind of the last great wasteland in Europe, but it's also really fragile. I actually live between two very fragile places. Connemara to the west of me, and the other side of me is what they call the Burren in County Clare. And there you have the most amazing little plants and flowers that only grow there. But again, really delicate places. And I think when you're writing a novel, especially your first novel, you put into it everything that influences you in your life, stuff that's happened to you. And it's interesting, I'm bilingual. I speak Irish, which I think you call Gaelic. In America,
yes,
you call that Gaelic.
right.
But I speak Irish.
Bra.
Yeah,
yes.
Eragobra, that's it,
Yes.
good. And I speak Irish as well as English. But our list of words is getting shorter and shorter because we're a minority language in Europe. We're dying, as are a lot of minority languages all over the world. But our language is dying bit by bit. So the list of words we have gets shorter and shorter. And Rocco, the thing is, if you ever wondered, how does a language die? It gets eaten by a bigger language. So in our case, it's English. So English is like a big cannibal, and it's eating our words.
In Ireland, children are still required to learn Gaelic,
They
right?
are.
Yes.
We have, of course, a small population who actually speak Gaelic at home, so they don't have to learn it. But we've had a whole new thing where we send kids who don't normally speak Irish to all Irish schools. They call it total immersion. And they just speak Irish all the time, even though they speak English at home. So in that way, we're kind of reviving it a bit, but it's still difficult.
The list of 500 words in the book that Letta and Benjamin control or monitor. Did you create your own list of 500 words?
Yeah, I did. And I used to have them on my desk, you know, the 500 words. I could check that I was using the correct ones. And originally, I thought we'd put the list at the back of the book. But when we tried it out on readers, what happened is human beings are so awkward. What they would do is every time they came on a word, they were going to the back of the book to check, was I right? Was it on the list? So they thought, the publishers at home thought it was too distracting for readers. But I wrote to actually a linguist in America to ask his advice. And I said to him, what's the least number of words we would need to just have a regular conversation, you know, nothing fancy, just plain words? And he said 500 words. And that's where I got that idea of 500 words. I thought I'll go with that.
Right, and then there were specialized lists for different occupations.
So for you, for instance, I don't know what kind of extra words I'd have to give you. I'd have to give you microphone and interview, those kind of words, because you'd need them to do your job.
Right, exactly. The country of Orc is not a really fun place.
No.
No, and so there are the people who are loyal to the leader whose name is Noah.
Yeah.
Yes, and then there are desecrators.
Desecrators.
Right.
They call themselves creators, but the law and the government call them desecrators, because I suppose they're kind of rebels.
Right. There's a variety of names like Letta and Marlowe and Benjamin. How did you come up with your characters' names? It's like naming children.
It is. It is like naming children. And some of them you have to really think about to get the name. And then others just come to you. Mrs. Truckle just arrived. I have no idea where she came from. She just came into my head. Mrs.
She's
Truckle.
the teacher, right?
Yeah. Benjamin, Finn, for instance, who's the older rebel guy. Finn at home in Irish mythology, one of our biggest heroes is Finn McCool, who was a giant and fought for Ireland.
Right.
So Finn is a nice, solid name. It's a common enough name at home, Finn, for boys. So I like that. Marlowe, I have no idea. I don't know who he is or where I got that name. But again, that just kind of popped into my head. I thought that's his name.
And he is the young man that Letta, that takes care of Letta.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he shows her, she's loyal to the crown, as it were. She's loyal to the government. And he gradually shows her that the people who are running Ark are not quite what they seem.
So people, they would keep cards with words on them. And actually, so this is number 351. So this says question, and then there's a short definition.
Yeah. And of course, the definition has to be in very simple words as well, because I can't use fancy words because they're not allowed access to those words. So that was a bit of a challenge, just trying to write the definitions really simply.
Yes, so for a question it says, what you ask needs answer.
Yeah, they sound like crossword puzzles, don't
Yes,
they? What you ask needs answer.
Yes, so what I did, I created some cards here, and I'm going to ask you if these words would be on the list of 500, and what the definition, no matter if they were or weren't, what the definition would be. So the first one I have is fun.
Okay, definitely not a list word.
No.
We don't encourage fun.
No.
Fun, I suppose, having a good time.
So it would be having good time.
Yeah, having good time.
Right.
But we wouldn't have that.
They would not have that. Oh, so if there's no fun, I doubt if this word would be on that too.
No candy. No,
Candy.
Definitely not. Food is actually quite limited because they only have what they can grow themselves. There's a lot of talk about beetroot, which I hate. I put beetroot in because I hate it.
So for us, for we here in the U.S., is that what we call beets?
I would think so.
Yes.
Red.
It's red,
yeah,
yes.
vegetable,
Yeah, so beets. And they actually use that to make ink.
Yeah. I looked that up on the internet, as you do, to find out how would you make ink if you didn't have any. So they said beetroot is a really good ink. But I like the idea that they used different things at different times of the year. So they could use beetroot, they could use blackberries. Blackberries, you have blackberries here?
Yes.
They make a good kind of an ink. So she says, Letta says that she liked the autumn because it smelt of beet, and she knew that was the time of year.
All right, and the last one I have is something that we kind of emphasize all the time, is the word please.
Yeah, they don't have that either.
And this is kind of a hard one to define, please.
Yeah, please. If you wish, maybe.
If you wish.
Or if you will.
If you will, yes. So, we're going to ask our viewers to kind of participate in this, and we have a comment section on the bottom.
Okay.
So we're going to ask them to list
Very good.
a word that you cannot live without. And then you're going to write the word and a short definition of the word. And we'll see what
and that
words,
is fun.
Yes, and we'll see the words that our viewers come up with. Yes. So the book has been well received in Ireland. You were shortlisted for the Irish Book of the Year.
Yes.
And you won the White Raven Award, which
Yes.
I wasn't familiar with. So what is the White Raven Award?
It's an award that the International Library at Munich give to, they take, you know, all the books that came out in a particular period across Europe in all languages, and then they award White Ravens to particular books. It might be more than one book in a year. So I was very fortunate that the list got a White Raven.
This is your first novel.
Yeah.
Yes, but before writing novels, you were a picture book writer.
Yes, I wrote picture books.
Yeah, so tell us about some of those.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote picture books, and usually, unlike the novel, which, you know, takes a lot of working out and plotting, I found with the picture book, sometimes the story would just come fully formed. And on one occasion, I was in the United States, and we were in like a little gift shop, you know, where there are always fragile things. And there was a man there with his little boy who was about 3. And the daddy was saying, you know, don't touch that, son, be careful. And the little guy was a bit disgruntled. And as he walked out the door, I heard him say, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dragon hunter. Is that a good American accent?
Yeah, that's very
Thank
good.
you.
It's Southern, yes.
Southern,
yes.
Good. So he said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dragon hunter. And I thought, you're tiny. Your dad's bossing you around, but you think in your head you're going to be a dragon hunter. So I wrote a book called, in Irish, in Gaelic, it's called Misha agus an Dragoon. And it was about a little bear who really wanted to go hunt dragons. But he was afraid of almost everything. He was afraid of the dark, he was afraid of heights, but he wasn't afraid of, you know, I'm going to rescue a prince in a big tower. And I think that's kind of a lot like me sometimes. I think, you know, there are things that scare you, you know, that stop you doing the big things because you're kind of scared of the small things. So I think for anybody, that book's a good message. You know, if you can conquer those small things, you'll be better able to do the big things.
Right.
I wrote an early reader called Frogs Do Not Like Dragons, which is kind of a deep philosophical thought. Frogs do not like dragons. And I wrote it because my niece got locked in the bathroom at home when she was about 3, and when we finally got her out, we had to take the door off.
Oh, my.
And my sister was quite annoyed, and she said, how did you lock yourself in the bathroom? And Sarah said, I didn't lock myself in the bathroom. Creepy the witch locked me in.
That's
so
right.
I wrote a book about a little girl who's locked in the bathroom, and she's telling the people outside that there's a dragon and a witch and a whole cast of characters in there.
Right.
Like
well, we all know there are dragons in
Yes,
Ireland.
we do.
Yes. I mean, that's what they tell us here in the U.S.
You're absolutely
And when
right.
you go to Ireland, make sure you visit the dragons.
Yeah, we never tell you a lie, ever. We tell you the truth. But it's funny, I'm one of 6, you know, 6 girls. We're all girls. So it's funny when you're saying about the award. What I remember from my childhood is fighting about whose award would go on the mantelpiece. Because there was only a certain amount of room, there were 6 of us. Not that we were winning that many awards, but we were doing things like Irish dancing. And I have to tell you, it's kind of easy to get an award when you're doing Irish dancing if you're at a certain age. But we would fight over whose statue would go where.
So Letta has red hair.
Strangely, she has red hair.
Now, did you, when you were thinking of Letta, who's a very strong woman, girl,
Yeah.
she's about 16, I would think?
Maybe 14 even.
14, okay. And so were you thinking of yourself at 14?
Well, it's funny, there are 6 of us, like I said, 6 girls, and 3 of us have this colour hair. And then I was doing research, and I discovered that the red hair gene is weakening. So maybe in another 50 or 60 years, there won't be any redheads, because the gene is falling foul of the other stronger genes for like black hair or blonde hair. So I thought that was interesting, because in the book, after the melting, a lot of things are kind of extinct or were extinct before this happened. For instance, the bees are a big thing. John Noah, who runs this society, has brought back the bee. So we gather that in our time, the bee became extinct. And I love bees.
Yes.
In Ireland, bees were really important. My grandfather kept bees. They were like an income because it was honey. One of the weird things about bees at home is if you had a hive of bees, if somebody died in the house, you had to tell the bees out of respect. If you didn't tell them, they would swarm and go and live with somebody else.
So they were kind of. You don't want to lose your bees.
No, because they were an income stream.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
you could sell the honey.
Yes.
So I like that in the book. And in the book as well, John Noah has brought back the white wolf who had become extinct. And he loves the wolf, and he's managed to bring him back into nature.
So are you working on another book?
I am.
Oh, is it a novel or a picture book?
A novel.
Oh.
Yes, I am working on a novel.
So it's fantasy. Is it a fantasy
Yeah,
also?
it is.
So tell me, before you tell me
Yeah.
a little bit, if you can tell me a little bit about your book, what were some of the fantasy books you enjoyed reading as a young person?
Well, I adored Tolkien. I loved The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Actually, Tolkien spent a lot of time in my town, in Galway.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was an external examiner at the university there. And some of his papers are still there. But I loved The Hobbit, and I loved The Dark is Rising, Susan Cooper.
Yes.
I love Harry Potter.
Oh, of
Love
course.
Harry
Who
Potter.
doesn't?
Who
Yes.
doesn't? Yeah, and it's great fun, and I really enjoy it. I loved The Knife of Never Letting Go, Patrick Ness.
Yes,
Love
okay.
that book. But I read everything and anything, but I do kind of prefer fantasy to anything else.
Yeah, we're going to have those titles in a little list on the website here on KidLit TV. So if you want to read the same books that Patricia Forde read when she was young, you can. You could go to your library or your bookstore to get those books, because I think I think every book you mentioned is probably still in print.
Yeah, I would think
yes,
so.
Yes.
But don't you just love libraries, though?
Yes.
They're the business. Where we lived, the library was down the street, but the building was twofold building. Downstairs was the court, and upstairs was the library. So my mother used to say, either go upstairs and read the books, or stay downstairs and be a criminal. So we went upstairs.
It
was much more fun.
Your mother is a very wise
She is.
woman. Yes. Well, thank you for being with us here today.
It was lovely talking to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Enjoy your stay in the U.S.
I will.
Remember, until next time, give a kid a book in any format. Patricia, say it in Irish.
Well, go dtí an chéadú eile, tóir leabhar do gasúir, leabhar be.